And with your career in law enforcement, how does, you've been trained, highly trained yourself, the future of California? What do you see if recreational use of marijuana gets passed in 2016?
I'm worried. I am really, really worried. To put it in perspective, the cops that are nearing retirement, the number one thing I'm hearing from these cops, I'm retiring to another state. They are fleeing en masse. And they're fleeing en masse because they see what's going to happen. And what's going to happen is, if marijuana is legalized, your DUIs are going to go up. If your DUIs go up, they're going to kill people. Who's that going to be? Is that going to be your daughter, your son? It's going to be you. It's going to be your wife, your mother, your father. So there's impacts to that. Somebody's going to die out of that. You have the robberies that are going to occur. You have the poor judgments going to occur. You have the higher use among our youth. Do you want that to be your children? That's where our future is. So you have to look no farther than Colorado. I've talked to officers in Colorado about how the impact's been for them. They're not seeing this magical money that was going to appear from taxes. They're not seeing that. What they're seeing is they're seeing BHO labs at an exorbitant rate. They're seeing their DUI rates go through the roof. They're seeing more injuries from people being in a psychosis, from taking such a large amount of a concentrated form of marijuana that these people go on to commit a murder, hurt themselves, or do some other horrendous act. And so, again, all you have to do is look at Colorado and know that's what's going to happen. History is a predictor of the future. I just have to look at what happened in Colorado to know what's going to happen in California.
Excellent. So if we could hit a couple last points. One is the Emerald Triangle and grow operations. Gain into that a little bit. I understand some of the grow operations have cartels that run those. Can you go a little further into the dangers of that?
So when you look at the Emerald Triangle of California, which is Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino County, everything's set up amongst these cartels. And, in those areas, you have people that have set it up, and they're very protective of what they have. You dare not trespass onto where they have, and you could do that accidentally. All right, you can not know. You could be on a trail, venture off, not knowing that is, somebody's got a grow operation there, and there's harm that have come to people that have done that. There have been major drug rip-offs, between those people. And not only that, even when you get out of those areas, it's the Mexican cartels that run all of the grow operations that we're seeing. When I say Mexican cartels, these are the same Mexican cartels that are battling in Mexico that are running marijuana grows up here in California. You dare not accidentally trespass onto where they're going, because they do have, the standard armament that you would expect a cartel to have to protect the cop. If they're going to shoot at the police when we go to raid them, what do you think they're going to do to a hunter that accidentally happens upon that marijuana grow? People will say, "Oh, but if we regulate marijuana, the cartels will destroy them." No, you're not. You have to just look at Colorado. They have increased the amount of marijuana being being grown in their state, and it's the cartels that are running it, because there's money to be had. When you have that large amount of money to be had, you're going to have organized crime, which are the cartels, and you're going to have violence to go along with it.
I understand that a car can be traveling down Highway 101, for example, and it gets stopped, and law enforcement might find a surprise inside.
It depends. If it's going northbound, it's money. Or I'm sorry, if it's going southbound, it's money. If it's going northbound, it's marijuana.
Okay. Okay, so hold on. If it's going southbound away from there, isn't that pot?
If it's coming into California, it's marijuana. If it's going out of California, it's money.
Down to Mexico? Or
usually.
Okay,
yeah.
So I just want to get a nugget on that because I think that's kind
Okay.
of interesting.
I gotta tell you,
Yeah.
if we make a car stop on the freeway, it's into it because if we don't find weed, it's always going to be money, one or the other. You know, it's like every car we stop has marijuana in it. Every car I stop, I walk up and I smell an odor of marijuana in it. Every single time. And that person is almost always DUI, or they have an amount for sale, or they have stolen property, or they have, it's always something else. It's always marijuana and then some other crime that's being occurred. You know, I've yet to stop a cancer patient, the legitimate cancer patient, okay? Somebody that's truly sick. I've yet to stop somebody like that has medical marijuana. Because I asked those people. I've asked people, like, we'll go to calls where you will see truly sick people.
Mhm.
And I'm compassionate about it. My mom died from cancer. My mom died from cancer as this was coming up to the ballot. And, you know, we're compassionate. We want to talk to people. When we talk to them, we find out that they have these health issues and they have this life crisis. And I'll ask them, hey, do you think marijuana would help you? From a lot of them, I hear the same thing, which is, I want to vomit just thinking about smoking marijuana right now. There's modern medicine that takes care of those same issues. We have, one of the things we have is we have Marinol. Okay, when people are sick, one of the things that they can have is they got Marinol, which is all the good components of marijuana that make you get your appetite back, that suppress nausea, in a pill form, with nothing to get you high that you can take, and that would take care of those issues. We forget that the people pushing this are the people that want to get high. There was, I can't remember who it was, but back when Prop 215 first came about in 1995, one of the proponents came out and said, we're going to make drugs legalized on the backs of sick people.
Unacceptable.
No.
Hi again. We've heard some interesting information from Keith Graves, but now we turn to our second interview, where Philip Drum finishes out the session with Al Crancer, who is also a retired NHTSA researcher.
Okay, my name's Philip Drum. I'm a pharmacist, and I'm here today with Al Crancer. Al, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Al Crancer, and I'm a independent researcher, and I focus on especially alcohol and marijuana use in fatal crashes.
And so, Al, how did you become interested in marijuana and crashes dealing with marijuana in particular, maybe here in the state of California? What is it that your research has shown?
Well, I originally got involved in 1970. I did the first legal marijuana study with driving simulators in Washington State. And we, at that time, showed that alcohol was a big problem, but marijuana, which at that time was very low dosage compared to what it is now, was not much of a problem at all. And since then, I've been looking at the national data, and we've found that every year, marijuana use in motor vehicle fatal crashes has increasing, and the use of marijuana and alcohol is also increasing very significantly in the last few years.
So when you said before that the amount of marijuana was low, do you remember what the amount of marijuana THC content was back in 1970 that you were dealing with?
It was 0.9, which is less than 1% THC, the active ingredient in marijuana. And now, how high is it now?
Well, again, in the 28% in Colorado is what's being found in their marijuana products. So what you were dealing with, and even what Marilyn Hustis has been dealing with recently, she deals with 3 to 8% THC.
Okay.
So what's out on the road today is clearly nowhere close to what's being studied even in studies. So what are a couple of concerns then that you have with regards to marijuana?
Well, marijuana is different than alcohol, the number one drug involved in fatal crashes. At 30% alcohol, 30% involvement in fatal crashes. My concern is two things. The potency of marijuana isn't like alcohol. In alcohol, if you have 2 drinks, 4 drinks, 8 drinks, you can determine the alcohol content and the potency. In marijuana, the marijuana products and the marijuana they smoke and or eat, it's very difficult to determine the potency. And there's a tendency for people to both overestimate and underestimate the potency of the marijuana on the street. And it's not a harmless, low dose type of marijuana like it was in 1970.
Okay, and I'm aware too that there's some products out there, like there was the one student that ended up jumping out of the hotel there in Colorado, that he ate a cookie that had 80 milligrams of THC in it, and that caused him to jump out of a hotel window.
Right.
Would you want somebody like that driving down the road?
And no, not at all. And the other thing that has changed, not only has marijuana use in fatal crashes been increasing over time, the increase in alcohol and combined with marijuana is also increasing everywhere. And the 3 big states that you look at, if you want to look at increases of marijuana use, are Washington, Colorado, and in California.
And what percent increases have you been seeing with that combination from, say, a decade ago? Was it on the order of around 11%? And now it's on the order of 19%, I believe, is what you're telling me?
The actual percent from 11 to 19% of the people, have been using marijuana in motor vehicle fatal crashes. And it's really turning out to be a bigger deal than most people thought originally. It's not a harmless substance.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We thank Keith Graves and Al Prancer for their time and views. We close out this last program with a news clip from the BBC about a marijuana user's experience with the drug.
I started smoking cannabis at a young age. I mean, well, it wasn't young, it was in my 20s. But the cannabis around that time was cannabis, it was hashish. Solids, we call them, was totally different to the cannabis. It started in the 90s, the skunk. And I started smoking that. And I got really, really depressed at times because it's very strong, the THC. I was buying it in little amounts and hiding it in the house. And every time I used to go back to it, I used to think someone had stole it because it was getting less and less. But it was myself smoking it in such large quantities. But it did bring me depression, it brought me anxiety, brought me to a very dark place in my life at a certain time. And then I realised, and slowly I've been pulling myself out ever since.
When you say you were in a dark place, what happened as a result of that with those who were nearest to you and the position you were in at that time?
The trust with my family and my wife had completely disappeared. There was no trust at all, and it led to the marriage breakdown in the end because of drugs.